Okay, good evening and welcome to the Timberlane Regional School District's meeting for Thursday, July 25th, 2019. I'd like to take a moment of silence for our troops that put themselves in harm's way. Okay, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Belcher, if you could take the roll call vote, please.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie. Kim Farah.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah Mockamer. Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage. Sue Sherman.
Here.
Jennifer Silva.
Here.
Seated at the board table this evening is Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler. The presence of other district administrators, as well as Timberlane Teacher Association officers, will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Okay. And we'll move on to our approval of minutes for the May 29th, which will be the ones that I just handed out now. We'll start from there.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as prepared by Chairman O'Neill. Nice job, by the way.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Any further commentary? If not, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm sorry, that was quick. Kim, did you have your
4?
hand up?
I mean,
No.
yep.
Okay, 4, thank you.
All those opposed? All those abstained? 2 abstentions.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, now we'll move on to the June 20th.
Move to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Need a little bit more time. Now I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Those abstained?
Mrs. Belcher's minutes, I'm sorry, Sean.
I know.
Thank
All
you,
my
Better
tips
than
and
Mr.
checks
Boyle.
on that one.
Sheila, was that a vote for or is that against?
Yes, it was for, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
Yes.
No, that's okay.
So it's 1,
5,
2,
0,
3,
1.
4, 5 to 1.
Thank you.
5, 0, 1. All right, we'll go on to the July 18th.
Make a motion to approve the July 18th minutes.
Second. I have something I'd like to add to those minutes.
Okay.
On the first paragraph, where it talks about the basis for his call for an emergency meeting, which was to notify the board members. I would like to add something in there that also says, and, sorry, I can't read my own writing right now. The window that existed, which would have been missed had the board not met.
To do our, yeah, we have a 15-day period to respond.
So I think did I not put that in further? Yeah, so that's in paragraph, it's 2 paragraphs after the administrator's present. It's in there. I think it's the last, discussion also says the chairman being notified of the petition on the 18th before that.
But the point of having it
Yeah,
as an
it's necessary
emergency
within the petition's
meeting,
15-day. So what would you like?
I would just like that, either keep it there and put it there, or move it up there, because that was why why it was
You want me to
imperative
get my
that we
discretion to
met.
put it in? Or me just use my discretion to put it in? I understand what you're asking
Yeah.
for, to include the 15-day window,
Yep.
notification period, 15-day window. Yeah.
Thank you.
You understand the point, though. And I would agree with that as well.
Sure.
So there was, was a motion made and seconded by Kim with, is everybody in agreement that that includes Jen's verbiage that will be wordsmithed by Mrs. Belcher? Okay. I'll move the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? So we have 1 abstention and 2, 4, 5, 0, 1.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Those are not there. And then we have, did you pass them around, Ken? I put it there, okay.
They're over there.
All right,
Do you
so
have
now
the
these are
non-public minutes?
These are non-public?
Yeah, we only got one
We
set.
got one set, but.
Oh, there's more.
It's coming around.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Jen,
what? I have one thing here, I passed it around.
I got one too.
there were
Is there
plenty
another
of them.
set?
I put it right here.
Yeah, I took one and passed it around.
You share?
I'm good.
How many copies do we have?
It is a single-page, non-public, June 20th, sealed.
I'm good.
Just the sealed ones from the 20th of June.
Yeah, the ones we just passed down.
Oh, we short one?
Yeah.
Well, here, take mine, I wasn't there.
I'm all set.
Okay.
I just didn't want the count to be wrong when we pass them
I'll
back.
make a motion to approve the June 20th non-public minutes.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Okay. Call the question. All those in favor?
2, 3, 5.
All those opposed? And all those abstained?
Jen Silva. Got it.
Jen, you
Jen is
abstain?
Oh, yes, I'm abstaining, sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
Been a long way.
0-1 again.
And,
And those come back.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I only gave you 6 and then 7. I forgot to count you back in 6.
All right. We're down to our student representative here they're on summer break, and delegates and individuals. I'll try. Expect we have none. Do we?
None, I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
counting minutes.
No. That's fine. We'll move on to our first agenda item, which is the SAU withdrawal plan update. Dr. Farah, floor is all yours.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have a copy of the Withdrawal Planning Committee's organization and SAU 55 withdrawal plan. That will be finalized by the middle of next week for a public hearing on the 20th of August. In addition to this plan, which is about, keeps changing pages, 24 pages with the signature page, there is an appendix of about 150 pages that will be included with the plan. This will be available in the 4 towns as a hard copy, right? We're going to distribute to the 4 towns and in the SAU office. Per statute, Hampstead will receive a copy of this plan so that they will have the opportunity at the public hearing to weigh in on the plan. Just a couple highlights. I'm not going to read the whole plan. what pertains really to the board, the whole thing pertains to the board, but in terms of the synopsis here is that the committee voted in favor of moving towards withdrawal from SAU 55 and establishing a single district SAU with a transition year of 2020-2021, which means that we would exit the SAU at the end of that fiscal year. So our SAU would be established July 1, 2021. That gives us time to, if we need to, bring on new SAU staff. The vote of the committee was 5-1-1. 5 were for. Sabrina Alberg, who was a representative from Danville, voted against, and Mark Sherwood from Sandown abstained. Dr. Metzler is on the committee. There are 8 members, but he's non-voting member. The people that sign the actual submission of the plan are those that have voted in the affirmative. A couple of things in the plan. I guess I would point you to page 15. It speaks to the transition plan. If the withdrawal goes to warrant, and well, the withdrawal will go to warrant. If it passes, there will have to be some funds allocated in the budget for the transition year, and we're anticipating approximately $100,000 there. So you can read through that. It really is the cost of bringing on board, should there be a need, a new superintendent and some new administrative staff. That's all a big question mark because we don't know if we withdraw what's going to happen with SAU personnel. So that's going to be up to these 2 boards if the withdrawal passes to negotiate. The other areas that the board needs to be thinking about that $100,000 to budget for in this upcoming budget cycle, because that will be the 2020-2021. In terms of an overall cost of the transition, that's a one-time approximately $100,000 cost that we're anticipating. I give great credit to Karen Steele from Atkinson and also John Hughes from Danville for putting together on page 2122 the proposed budget for the single district SAU. Now, this budget is in present year dollars for those that are kind of familiar with economics. We haven't made any assumptions about, we're projecting health care increasing at 5%, we're projecting salaries, because then we would have had to then bring the current budget and put it into future dollars, and we felt it would just be kind of confusing for people. So this dollar amount, even though it's in year 21-22, is not really reflective of what you'd see as normal increases. But based on their analysis, they feel that there's going to be a savings of, say, about $150,000 to $170,000 year on year. The other area that the board would have to get involved with, if you go to page 14, is the dispositions of the assets and the liabilities. The assets are minimal for SAU 55 because Timberlane owns everything. There's the unassigned fund balance that would have to be, in my mind, negotiated at the end of 2021. That unassigned fund balance should probably be distributed back. That would be our proposal, that it goes back to, Timberlane's portion goes back to Timberlane. Hampstead's portion would stay with SAU 55. The other item is the fingerprint machine. We're proposing it stays with SAU 55. The cost of that, and I just got that today, it's about $9,000. $18,000 is way too high. The liabilities on the other end of it, there's one multi-year contract that ends in 2022. And this, I have discussed this section with legal at length. This contract remains the responsibility of SAU 55. If there are any continuing obligations to SAU 55 with respect to past employees, these would be people that we still continue to pay some, Sue, correct me, some portion of the health benefit after they retire, and also some portion of the retirement. Those obligations are going to have to be discussed between the 2 boards. We did get clarification today that outstanding long-term obligation by the actuary's figure is around 120,000. Now, that is the maximum liability to the district. If all the SAU employees moved with the district into the new SAU, that would be zero. So you're going from 0 to 120,000, so it's difficult to give that number at this point. And that is not within the planning committee's purview to tell our board what to do in terms of how to address these liabilities. So that would be subject to negotiation. So those are the main points on here. We have had every meeting open for public comment. I think we only had one meeting where we had public comment. I know Mrs. Springer from Danville commented. All the documents are publicly available on the website. There's a special website for the committee. We did not include every single document in the appendix. Once the public hearing is completed, we will have a 14-day waiting period, and then this plan will be submitted to the Board of Education, State Board of Education. They will have a maximum of 60 days to review the plan, and then we will go to the State Board of Education and present the plan. It will be the attorney, myself, and any other board members or planning committee members that wish to attend that meeting. Once that's done, once the Board of Education gives their approval, it goes to ballot on the warrant, and you'll see the warrant article wording in the conclusion of the plan, and that is by statute. So, any questions? Mr. Boyle?
What's next? When is your public hearing?
August 20th. 7 o'clock. It will be in the recital room in the PAC. Unless we
right there on the
draw a
couch.
huge crowd, and in which case we'll move to the PAC.
All right.
So somewhere in the pack.
Somewhere in the PAC.
We're reserving the recital hall for
And
right now.
council will be there.
Okay.
Mrs. Sharp.
Sue?
So this one, what you gave us tonight, is online?
Yes,
You can get
that
at
is
it.
posted
People can
under
get at it.
this July 23rd agenda packet.
It's in there, okay.
It's in there.
Okay.
There are only two changes
Yeah.
that were made that have not been finalized into this draft. The first one is on page 14, under the liabilities section.
Yeah.
There's a one-page sheet of paper that speaks to those liabilities, the 120,000 that I just spoke to.
Okay.
The other change is in the org chart on page, what's that page? 18. This is a proposed staffing chart, obviously subject to change by whoever the superintendent would be for this new SAU. We did add the business operations coordinator back into the staffing chart.
Thank you.
So that has been adjusted.
And the fingerprinting machine dollar amount.
Right, oh yeah, and we're adjusting the fingerprint machine dollar amount down, but nothing else will change in this plan. But the final plan will be posted as soon as I get it done.
And the final plan will have all these added appendixes that you were talking about earlier?
Yes, and they're here if you guys want to look at them. We just didn't print them all out. These are all available online. So when this goes up to the Board of Education, when it goes to Hampstead, the entire packet will go. At the public hearing, unless this board decides that otherwise, we're just going to provide copies of the plan. I don't think people are going to be,
All this supporting
it's
appendix?
available, but this is a supporting document that we need to send forward to the Department of Ed.
Okay.
And I do want to thank the committee. They have done an incredible amount of work in a short period of time. We started May 1st and set our milestones, and they met every one of them. So I really have to give a lot of thanks to those members of the committee that spent most of the summer working on this.
That would be great. Okay. Anybody else have anything else?
If you want a copy of the appendices, you're welcome. I have the copy. Jen and I have copies, so
Bet you do.
whoever raises their hand first gets it.
I didn't bring mine with me. It's too heavy.
All right, well, if not, we'll move on to the next one, is a PAC schedule update. I believe that was gonna be done by Mr. DeGarry, but Mr. Gary is,
It wasn't, it's just,
I can
Dr. Messer
speak,
can
yeah,
speak to
speak
that.
quickly.
Yeah. No, no.
Yes, several years ago, the board had asked, about a schedule, early, and so this would be like usually in late August or July, whatever, so what we wanted was our students and obviously the people in the community to have access to the PAC, but we wanted the children in the district, so they scheduled out pretty much the whole year. We did ask them to try to avoid your regularly scheduled meetings, so I don't think you'll see things, so that you can attend the events at the PAC. And so this pretty much, I mean, there could be some changes during the year as events come up and people look for the open dates and try to get in, but this is a pretty comprehensive look about what the PAC will look like from, obviously the opening of the school straight through the end of the school year. So I thank Mr. D and his staff over there for pulling this together so quickly, and they've gotten better and better each year, the color coding and the times and those sorts of things, so it's a pretty easy read. It gives you a good idea about how much, well, it gives you a great idea of how much that PAC is used and how our students are in there so often. So one of the things we had, two of the things in the past that we had, the problem was sometimes outside groups were getting in and our kids didn't have access. So this gave them complete access to the PAC, right? They picked all their dates first and then they go outside. If that makes sense, right?
Yep.
Sean? Jen?
I'm sorry. Jen?
Just one thing I want to add to the schedule, that I know of, that's not on here, that I would also like to plug in case there's any other parents out there. Monday, August 26th, 6 o'clock in the PAC is high school freshman orientation.
Ah.
Well, this is a music and drama chart, but they do use they are going to use that for other things that are school related. This is the music and theater groups.
Sports, I think, looks like.
Yeah, obviously, just point out, not every single thing's on there right now, but,
No, that's fine. I just wanted to plug that. I know some parents have been asking. I have an incoming freshman, so I have it on my calendar.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on this?
Do we need to vote to accept this, or?
it's just more informational, so that you'd have an idea, and you can plan your schedules around that if there are events that you like to go to.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. One is a budget update.
See ya. You just got this today, right? Unless.
Check registers.
Come on here.
Not our monkeys, not our.
Okay, relative to your memo here, Mr. Dowd, is, we're looking at what this current year in regards to, special education. We have out of roughly a $2.6 million budgeted, we actually spent 2.36, leaving over 282,000 in this year. But what we're worried about is that going into next year of the budgeted line item of 2.389 and projected expenditures of 2.649 is the projected amount. Do we have, I guess, can you offer any commentary on that? It seems like, from the line items, it seems like unanticipated move-ins in the district. I mean, are those known or still anticipated? I mean,
Well, I believe those are known.
Anything that you see in front of you is known. So as part of that 2649 number, that 2,649,000, and that is just special education outside tuitions. That,
outside tuition,
that,
okay.
that factor. So anything that you see in that right now is known. Now, when we say unanticipated move-ins, we do budget a contingency and anticipate that maybe we'll have a net, right, one or two additional placements, right, as a result of the move-ins, but it's offset by the move-outs. And we just haven't had that offset, which is the problem. We haven't had
So
any.
that we haven't had any move-outs, which would then free up, those funds.
That's correct.
But
Which
do we-
would,
How much do we have in that is for the unanticipated portion of it, of potential move-ins?
you figure about one or two additional beyond those which we may anticipate as,
The dollar amount
Possible.
of each one of these children that would be requiring these services, the dollar amount can vary from a little amount to a very large amount. So how are we anticipating we're budgeting for that? Is it, two maxes or two averages of min and max?
Well,
A
as
lot of
part-
permutations you could use on that.
as part of that mix, we have students in district who are identified as potential for the following year, potentially even that year, for placement outside of the district. So there's all, we don't have it, we know what we know who we have, and we assume them to be moving forward. We also have the potential for students that we know may require those outside services. So we have those. We don't necessarily budget those at 100%, but if you have 3 students that you see as a potential, you budget 2. And in this case, we're up nearly a dozen, not in one category alone,
Okay.
but throughout all of them. And we don't have that offset, which we have sometimes where we have that, move out situation.
Okay.
And a student or two may come off that list and net against the additions.
Okay, Jen?
I'm reading this, and I'm, underneath that little chart, it looks like there's 3 buckets: unanticipated move-ins to the district, unbudgeted court placement students, and unbudgeted placement of previously in-district students. Do we have a breakdown of those 3 buckets? Or could we get a breakdown of those 3 buckets?
I'll ask the superintendent. It's primarily unbudgeted placement of previously in-district students. That's a significant majority of that list. I'll leave it to the superintendent I don't know what our special education director can produce on that.
Okay, Dr. Metzler?
I think at a future meeting, we could probably, go into a little more detail. I think what's important, obviously, if people move in, we don't know, right?
Right.
I mean, people move in and.
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around how, I read those as 3 different buckets, and I'm just curious what,
One of the other one is when we're going through due process, we may suspect that it may go a certain way. And sometimes there's 2 sides to that. There's the district that believes they can provide the services. There's a family that may not be satisfied or are dissatisfied and are looking for an outside placement, and that goes through. So those are ones that we can start to kind of predict what we think the outcome may or may not be. And so if we look at those 3 buckets, and I think maybe that's something that's more of a non-public. I think there's some, we could talk in public about the numbers, but I think if there are particular cases that we wanted to discuss.
I'm not asking for particular cases, absolutely not, no.
Okay. I mean, but
Just
we could,
numbers.
but I mean, or what buckets they fall in and why, and kind of what it looks like. But it's hard, because if you budget and then you have surplus, and then you budget the following year based on what you spent the previous year, and then the obvious thing is if you have move-ins and some of those due process cases that end up, that number changed pretty drastically, I think, here. You look
Yeah,
at-
and
it's like a $500,000 swing, right? If we're looking at being favorable by 280, and now we're down 260, right?
And the variable, I mean, the known on each situation may be 40 to 60,000 or more.
Right.
So it's really tough to try and budget well over a year in advance.
Dr. Parra?
Did you take this and put it into the projections that we received from NESDEC to see how it compares? To see if maybe that is a tool that you can use to budget more precisely in the time frame that you have to complete the budget?
Certainly we can discuss that with the Director of Special Education Student Services.
Oh, well, the question was, have you looked at that?
I have not. No,
Can't ask the
we aren't
answer
a
for
budget season yet.
Susan, But I would, is Susan here?
No.
No. I would imagine that she obviously has used that to look, but I mean, I would let her respond. But I think sometimes there's trends, so some of these due process cases, you go through a particular period of time, and that I think is a trend where you end up with outside placements that are mandated, or there's settlements, and you go through a period of time. I think one thing that you can be proud of, Timberlane does a really good job from Beth Rincon on to Susan Rassico about being able to hold students in the district and service them. But there are times where there'll be a trend. All of a sudden, there's a series of people that are all looking for placements, and it kind of goes, it ebbs and flows a little bit. I think that piece, and not to make excuses for budgeting, but I think it's predictably unpredictable, and you just kind of go with it. But to Dr. Farah's point, if we have NESDEC information that for blocks of time or periods of year that looks like certain placements, then we should be budgeting appropriately, but.
Could we put an action item out there that when the sped budget comes forward in the proposed budget, that we lay the last 5 years of actuals against the sped trends and see if that can be used as a predictor for budgeting
Sure.
For 1920? Or for
for
now?
2021?
For 2021, I'm sorry.
Do
Yeah,
that, yep, next year's
But
budget.
we want Susan back at some point to talk about kind of where we are in terms of these numbers, or no? Or do you just want like an executive summary, maybe? About the buckets and where the numbers are? Your call.
I mean, at a minimum, I mean, we definitely would want something out of that, and then maybe that would cause us for a follow-up discussion on that to get more in depth than that. So we can start out with the executive summary, and then if the board decides that we need more information, we'll bring.
So we call it a special education budget update, maybe for this year, okay.
That's what I had anticipated. I figured that there would be some follow-up with that department.
Okay.
As to the direction of it, and again, even though I foresee or we're forecasting to be over those lines by 260,000, I'm not requesting anything from the board at this time because there may be some, we have a long time before school, which is a long time before school starts. We have some time before school starts, and it would be much better to gauge what that looks like once we're into the year. And I anticipate that we'll be able to have some students who are currently placed be returned to the district in that environment. And that'll hopefully provide some budget relief and provide the best opportunity for the student to learn.
Okay. Relative to just the overall year-to-date budget, I know that you want to get it complete for the August
Yep.
22nd. I mean, that's for the auditors. But have we done the closing of the June books yet? I mean, for our normal monthly process that we go through?
We're still closing those. That's a much longer process.
Okay.
And audit has additional requirements that they had actually never had in the past relative to the treatment of certain types of expenditures, mostly between accounts payable and encumbrances. And even though all of our bills may be paid, the way that we treat those in the end either causes them to be an expense on our books during the year or an encumbrance, and even then it has to be justified in terms of what the actual amounts are. So we're still putting those together.
When we're looking at budgets, okay, will you be able to isolate, like, everything that's in the current fiscal year and it's gonna hit that line item versus something that's gonna be encumbered and moved to the next year, so that we can easily identify, the different buckets?
Sure.
Of where those line items are, so that we can look at, because previously it was all enrolled into one and it was hard to figure out, what did you budgeted and how much did you spend, because that dollar amount that you have spent also includes encumbrances from the year before.
Previous year.
So it gets to be quite an exercise to, the board to try to decode that.
That's the only real way to look at what was budgeted and what was spent, whether it was spent in the year, whether it was spent after the year closed, or whether it was encumbered to be spent out of that year's budget dollars. This is because the encumbrances do not hit an expense account. The encumbrances go onto the balance sheet as a reduction of fund balance. So just so everyone's memory is refreshed as to why that's such an issue, it's much better to see the actual expense hit the actual expense line.
Correct. Okay.
I do have a couple other updates.
Okay.
One of them is, Kim, you had talked about transition costs as a budgetary item. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but when the withdrawal petition goes on the ballot, that goes on as a non-monetary item.
That is correct.
Yeah. Would it make sense to put on a separate warrant on the transition costs, or is that something that the Budget Committee should be looking to include in the budget?
It needs to be included in the budget. I've already discussed with council.
And if it doesn't pass, it stays in the budget?
Correct.
So the default item, right, would be in the default budget. Is that what he's?
No, just the
No, he's asking if it would stay, it has to stay in the budget. Does it go in the default budget?
I don't think so.
No.
If it doesn't go in the default
No.
budget, then if the article passed, there wouldn't be the,
Budget doesn't pass, then
We'd
you'd
have
have
to
a
find a way to
default with
fund
no
it.
funding.
Then you'd have to find a way
the
to
money.
fund it.
Yeah, find the money.
But it wouldn't go in the default budget.
Budget.
And there can't be a separate warrant for it. It wouldn't make, so what happens if the withdrawal passes and that article fails for the transition cost, does that mean you can't spend any money to transition?
Correct.
I think if you put it.
That's
if
why
you-
you
yeah.
can't put it in
You
there.
have to put
Yeah,
it
if you
in
made the
in
mistake
such a
and put it
way
on an
that,
audit,
yeah.
You would
That's
not
what-
wanna do that, because then no one
That's,
knows.
that's why I've already
Yeah.
had the conversation with legal, so does that help
worth
that?
fleshing
So,
out,
yeah.
it's worth discussing, so.
Yeah, that's how it will need to be incorporated into the Timberlane budget,
Okay.
assuming that, and this is why we backed this time frame so far up, assuming that it, not that the Department of Ed can really say no, but we'll have that approval in plenty of time for budget season. So the Budget Committee will know that there's this anticipated transition cost.
And by way of other update, I was in touch with the town manager here in Plastow. And as a budgetary item, it looks like they are moving forward on their water lines, which is great for the town. The anticipation is 2021 on that. So I wanted to put everyone on notice that if we were looking to tie in, it would be around that time that we'd be looking to tie in, I would suggest. So that may need to be something that we would consider putting in the budget as well. And that could be a significant cost, as there may not be a line being run
I agree.
near this campus.
Yeah, no.
No, it's East Road.
It's coming down East Road,
Yeah, it's going
correct?
down East Road, and he gave us a preliminary number. Go ahead.
Yeah, what was the number he gave,
It was over $900,000.
if we want to hook in
You go from East Road to here?
to
his-
the schools, all three buildings?
Well, I'm not certain, and there's an engineering firm who's working on this. I'm not certain if it's going to be East Road, or he was thinking near Cumberland Farms off 125. Why that is, I'm not 100% certain.
Shorter. It's 601 at the.
Well, it's just that depending where the line is, if, obviously it's one cost to go down a road, it's something else if we came in off East Road and went behind the school and you're not digging up and redoing roads.
Pavement.
So,
He talked about customers and the hope that if they were able to come up, that it would help increase customers. So then other people on Green Hill Road, residential people would also subscribe. And so I think, did he say like, they need like 400 customers? He had a
400
number.
customers, yeah,
Yeah.
to make it viable.
But you give him a lot of credit. I think politically, he's been able to really navigate some difficult waters, no pun intended, to get this, Plastow has 11 and I think a half miles of their own
1.9.
pipe, that's their contribution to being able to bring this water in, instead of having to make so they're not making a financial contribution of $20 million. They're gonna let them use their pipe, which they already have in the ground, so I don't know.
We definitely want to look into it, that's for sure.
Yeah, we don't want to let this go past and
Yeah,
then the next year decide, hey, we should have done that, and then the
Right.
prices.
So, and Brian, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but the pipes in Atkinson, are there any Atkinson-owned municipal pipes, or are they all Hampstead Area Water Company?
Atkinson's all Hampshire Area Water Company.
Hampstead Area Water Company, and that could be why, because if the connection were at East Road, it would be in Atkinson. It would be a private water company,
That comes in.
as opposed to tying into municipal here.
Coming in it from Cumberland, that's
E-
Plastow.
Even though the water goes through the same,
Sure.
yeah,
Yes.
right?
He
I know
explained
there's a
the
lot of big
shortest,
projects going on right now.
he explained the shortest route would have been 121A,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't help Wyndham and Salem, which was
Right.
a priority in terms of how this would work, so that's why I think they went back around the other route, which is a longer route, but touches more customers.
Well, we want to look into this.
just putting it on the, on the, something on the horizon, so.
And we can have Mark in at some point if you want. Town manager from Plastow, I'll talk to a little bit more in detail. He was great.
Well, there is an engineering firm the town is working with, and it might be good for us to reach out and see what the most viable solution is, what their plans look like in terms of bringing an option, the most efficient option forward for our district.
And the obvious thing is, bringing water into here, but we currently use wells. Is there issues with our wells that we?
Not at the moment. We have fine production as far as I can tell. We do have to engage in greater monitoring because we are considered a public water supply, a public water source. We always run the risk, as had happened in Hampstead. If you recall, a few years ago, they had 2 wells at the middle school, and one of those wells began testing at amounts that exceeded allowable amounts for, I believe, PFOAs, if I'm not mistaken. And there was some mitigation that was able to be undertaken on that. It happened out of the blue. The other issue to consider is that the standards for, and we never know, we are in an area that MTBE contamination, I guess, is possible, not exceptionally likely, but PFOA standards themselves are now being reduced in terms of what is allowable. So we may be okay now, and all of a sudden we run into a standard that suddenly our water becomes non-potable, non-drinkable, or could present a budgetary concern for the district. You're getting into mitigation at that point, which for Hampstead it costs quite a bit, and that's a very small campus relative to what Timberlane has. And then there's the general concern about well failure. Period. If we lose a well, it's not quite as easy as a home well.
The history. How many wells have we had here? Have they been, the longevity of them? Do we know any of that information?
Wells we have been fairly productive. We're in an area that we have a generally good water table. We don't rely on those wells for irrigation, and that's a huge burden that is saved from those wells. We also have reduced water consumption in the schools to reduce the burden.
Conservation is always good.
Yeah, to reduce the burden on those wells.
So it's nice to have an option, I think, that we can tap into this, but it doesn't seem to me like it's a dire need right off the bat. It's nice to know that if they were coming up and we needed to tap into it, do several well failures or some means to that through the testing that somehow it became that it was no longer drinkable. We've got, I would say, 50 years of history on those wells, and haven't had issues. So would be something that I think we would definitely want to monitor going forward. But spending almost $1 million to tap into something that we're going to get really the same water.
Well, Shimon, I think that's a preliminary number. I think we should explore it. It's not something we have to, and as Mrs. Sherman just whispered, that he did no comparison, like in terms of fire suppression. If you have a live hydrant out here, that's with your schools, and I think you should,
But
I think we should look into it.
no, we could look into it, but now that's
That's free.
addressing
We can
that.
look into it for free.
Yeah, no, I agree. But
Yeah,
if you're
I mean,
if the
speculate.
area that you're looking to address is fire suppression, then have the topic on fire suppression.
No.
It's water.
I'm just saying,
Potable
water source,
and-
we had a big debate a year or two ago there. We had people talking about the fields and there was no water and this kind of stuff. So it's a general, well, obviously it's been an issue for the town of Plastow, which is why they got as far as they did with this project. I'm glad to hear it. So I think there's a good opportunity for us to look into it and explore. Let's see what, I
always
think
looking into
if there's,
exploring
I think you're on the right track, Jeff, if bring this, whoever the engineer is, and
Yeah.
have him come in and address the board, and
Yeah, let's get him on an agenda
Yeah, see
and
what-
have him
see what-
speak in real terms
Talk to
instead of
us.
just
See what's up.
speculating.
yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be very, very helpful in terms of understanding the dynamics of the system, the reasons why,
Yeah.
to more fully understand what options are available. I don't know that the total would be 900,
Well,
950,000.
there's no sense in even
Right. saying the
Speculating.
number over
speculating,
and
you know,
over
it's like,
again.
hey,
But it would be good for the board to have information as now's the time. So, very good.
Anybody else have anything else? Okay, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
All right, move on to our next one is policies.
I don't think I was here for first read. So I personally would like to separate these out a little bit,
Okay,
only because the policies about board members, so on this list, it's 2 through 5. I had asked those to be looked at because we were talking about Timberlane's policies, and there's, I don't even know how, a lot, hundreds of policies that we have to look at and keep up with and make sure they're current. I thought these policies were about board members. They're all outlined in RSA.
Right.
I felt that they were redundant and didn't need to be in our policy book. The policy committee felt they should be there, and that's fine, but I'm not gonna vote in favor of those. So,
We still haven't heard from New Hampshire school boards whether they say these should be in or not, so we're
New
still.
Hampshire School Board update, I did reach out to, and the response I got, they're working to push them out as soon as possible. The review is taking substantially longer than most because of the number of unique policies the Timberlane Board has adopted independent of NHSBA sample.
Well, I was just thinking, so we follow your suggestion and not the committee's suggestion to reaffirm, et cetera. We take them out, and then we get the review from New Hampshire school boards, and they say they all should be there. I guess we can put them all back in, but,
Well, they're not required policies, so I'm not sure that New Hampshire School Board would.
well, they've got those lists, right, suggested,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's just my feeling on it, and every board member's entitled to vote however they want, but if we put them all together, I'm gonna be voting against these.
Can we table these until we
Yeah.
hear back from the New Hampshire School Board Association?
But, well, if they're not in their list of required policies, I'm pretty certain they're not gonna say keep them, because they are laid out clearly in RSA, so there's a redundancy here, and I agree with Jen, I don't see any reason for it.
So even though the policy committee recommended reaffirming number 2, a slight revision in number 3, a slight revision in number 4, reaffirm number 5, you'd take those all out.
Jen,
Even
what
though
was,
the committee has suggested you leave them.
The committee felt like they should be in there just for ease of locating them,
Yep.
should the public be looking for them. It was an easy place, rather than searching through RSA
Sure.
to find.
I guess my response to that is, you should go to the source document instead of, if you're gonna be searching for that, you should go to it should be at the source, the RSA. I just,
So
I
you
can,
think a community member would know to go to the source?
Well, that was another discussion we had.
I
Should we
think-
just put CRSA, whatever, and that's the
Right.
policy?
right, yeah.
That was another option that we talked about.
I mean, I think a community member, I don't know, I think they'd be more likely to go to an RSA than know that there's a school board policy and where to find it.
Well, my thought was, if I'm a community member and I'm gonna run for school board, I'm gonna look at the RSA
Well,
because
that's what
I
I'm
wanna know
saying.
what I'm getting myself
Yeah,
into.
these apply to board member qualifications, et cetera, not,
Yes, they are board member qualifications, just for the public, board member resignation, board member removal from office, and unexpired term fulfillment.
right.
And for some reason, these were adopted in 98, revised in 01, reaffirmed in 05, revised in 13.
Yeah, 83, 90,
Uh,
05. They've
I
been
don't
on
get
the
it.
books a while.
So we had talked about the great number of policies that the policy committee has to go through and look at and keep reaffirming, and how do we pare that down? This was an area that I had identified as maybe redundant, that we could move off of the books and keep it a little bit simpler.
You bring up a valid point,
So at least
because these are,
first read.
these, 4 policies are totally prescribed in RSA.
It's not, it's not, I don't think it's that big of a deal either way. That's just my personal feeling on it. And for the sake of moving 6 through 9 along, I wanted to split them out because I don't want to vote against
Right.
the others.
Well, maybe if the board
take
wants
one at
to,
a
we
time.
could.
If you want to
Right,
table
do this-
these until
we'll do-
after the.
Yeah, we could do the
feedback
second
from-
read for 1, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then 2 through 5, we could table, and then we could
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we do
ponder
that?
it and get some other data points and.
And
go to
we
next
should
school.
hopefully have
Well,
our
we don't-
policy review back by then too.
Which they're probably gonna say just remove those policies and then
If
that
they
would-
even
Or
touch
not-
on them
or
at all.
not touch them at all.
Yeah, so that way we paid them to do it. Let's see what they say about them.
ADAA, Timberland Regional High School Mission Statement, was another one I had asked that we repeal because, quite frankly, I'm not sure why a mission statement was in the policies to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the committee supporting
And the
repealing.
committee supported repealing that, yes. Not that the high school doesn't have a mission statement, but should that change, it's like then you've got to change it in whatever manuals, rights, responsibilities, and policies, and it's just one more thing to keep track of.
So are we gonna vote, or what are we?
Okay,
I'm
so,
gonna, can I make a motion? I'll make a motion to repeal policy ADAA and to approve for a second read JFAB, JIA, and JLDBA.
I'll second those. So it's 6, 7, 8, and 9, and remove 1. Yeah?
Yeah.
okay,
I just want to make one comment, I don't know if it came up last time, this policy committee, I think, I wasn't on the policy committee in years past, but this particular committee worked really hard at trying to streamline this process and looking forward how to improve the process. And one of the things that you'll note is we've added related policies on each of them, so that way, in the future, as we go through to reaffirm policies, we can quickly see which ones are related or otherwise referenced and do them all at once. Because what we've been finding is, we'll do one policy, and if we update it and it references 4 others, but we don't do those other 4 at the same time, then they could be contradictory.
all right, so last we left off was a motion by Kim to remove the first item and adopt for second read the policies that are identified as number 6, 7, 8, and 9. That was a motion and there was no second on that.
No, Sue seconded.
Oh,
Sue
Sue
seconded
did
it,
second?
yeah,
I'm
I
sorry, I
did.
didn't get that.
Yeah, I got that.
I'm sorry. Any more discussion on these? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain? We have 1 abstention and 4, 6.
Got it.
And the affirmative.
And we'll add the others back to the next meeting.
Yes, thank you. All right, policies, transportation. I know Mr., yep, you were gonna,
So, in your packets, the requested information for the Timberlane Regional Middle School and Timberlane Regional High School combined routes. You have that. I know you've had it perhaps for a couple of days, so I was just checking with Kathy.
I put it up last week.
So we can have Tom and Sandy at a later date if you have questions or want more explanation, but this is pretty much the data that you were looking for.
okay.
Could you just clarify for me, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here, because we had asked for a couple of, we were looking at a hybrid, and then we were looking at, first student was still going to, so this is first student's proposed
That's first
fully,
students. Mhm.
This is first student
Combined.
combined, not Sandy's work.
with,
No.
okay.
So this is what Colton put together? This is the product from Colton? Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
And what does this mean when it says between run layover?
Yeah.
Those are questions I don't have the answers to those
Minutes, I
questions,
think
so
it is.
we'll need them. So if you just generate your questions after looking at this, that would be one, and we'll get you answers to all your questions. We can put those in the executive summary, we can have Tom Geary and Sandy Hodgkins in to explain them, and for a student at some point if they're available.
Highlighted all the ones that they're gonna be exceedingly late. Look at the time they're gonna be different places, so. That's how I'd interpret that, those highlighted.
I don't know how to interpret it.
I'm not sure how to interpret it either.
Yeah.
So minus, to me, minus would mean that they're running behind by 18 minutes.
22 minutes or
Yeah, or
29
22 minutes,
minutes.
19 minutes, 25 minutes, that's a big one.
I don't
29,
understand what that
30.
means, though, end time.
I don't either.
That they're not gonna be done the route
Yeah.
until 3:23. So I just looking at Route 120, which is a Danville route from the middle school. Goes to Danville, through Plastow, blah, 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 blah. So it's gonna finish really late, so wherever it has to go next, they're gonna be, they're supposed to be there by 3:10, they're not gonna be there till 3:23. But we should have somebody come in and interpret that.
Okay. I guess,
So is message sent, message received, so this is not helpful in this form.
Definitely not.
Okay.
at least without an
I didn't find
interpreter.
it, so, I'll make sure they understand that, and so we need more. But we have some time, because this is a year out, remember?
Yep.
I don't want to speak too much for Sandy, and she'll have an opportunity to come in, but she's extremely thankful for them doing all the data entry. She's had a lot more time, and she can be far more creative, so she's pretty
excited.
excited about the fall, because she's had an opportunity to do some things that she hasn't had time to do in the past, so, and you've given her some flexibility with some of it, so she's excited to come in and share some of that with you. I know
This whole
she's.
exercise was just meant to all the students so that we could reduce their time on the bus and transportation.
I just wanted to speak, that I've had, over the past couple weeks, quite a few parents approach me, asking me, so are the buses combined? What is happening? How did you ever expect this was going to save money? And my response is this, exactly what you just said. For me, I never expected this to be a money-saving endeavor. For me, this was supposed to be an endeavor to try and do what's best for the students and reduce the time that they're on these buses, fully aware that the bottleneck is the elementary schools. If we have, so many kids at each elementary school, we have to have the buses for those kids. That's our least common denominator. You have to go from there. And I think the bus routes that are going to be put up, there are going to be, I think we talked about some hybrid, a couple of the further out areas will be combined, but that this fall, we're not looking at total combined busing, and
I can put, as soon as she's finished and we're ready, I mean, we're still in July, so we're
Yeah.
talking about the opening of school, so some sort of message out is very simple and easy to understand about kind of where we are and what we're doing and what they can expect, and then if they have any questions or concerns, to call Sandy, because there may be a few glitches, there always are.
There always are.
But really the spirit behind why we're doing what we're doing and what we're doing and what they can expect.
yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there tonight, because I think in previous meetings, there's a lot of information, and maybe it wasn't clear to the viewing public, and I think there was a lot of chatter amongst the, parents, neighborhoods, bus stops, sporting events, whatever. So I just wanted to try and simplify that a little bit.
Well, we did go in a lot of different directions to kind of get where we are, so that, in fairness, I mean, it could confuse some folks, and so if we get a nice opening message out to kind of where we are with transportation, welcome back, that will be helpful, so we'll work that out in, somewhere in the mid to late August,
Yep.
Before we open school.
All right. Anything else on transportation?
Did you finalize, did you want someone back in, or did you want an executive summary on the sheet?
Well, this, I think we need to go back, we need to tell for a student that this, in this form, is not helpful.
Or at
So,
least ask
we-
us how to
we-
decode it.
We need something more than just a sheet with numbers in it.
So at least a narrative explaining it, right?
Yep.
so that we
Well,
can-
that, and we also do want to see, we only saw one potential route or two potential routes that were combined. I'd be interested to see how many hybrid routes we have for the fall.
Oh, she's working on that.
Okay.
So can we
Well-
have her in
Well, we would have her in at the opening, that
August,
opening
yeah.
of school, that meeting, whether it's the
22nd of
22nd or the
August?
29th, whatever, we have those two meetings, we
If we
usually.
can have her, I
Yeah,
think
well,
that'd be great before school opens, in case we get any questions,
So put her on the
and we
22nd.
have a good idea what's going on. Please.
And we may have a really good idea what that message is gonna look and sound like
Right.
by then, too.
Okay. Also in transportation? Okay. Next item is our school board goals and superintendent goals. You know, we did touch a lot of it in our workshop and the minutes that we just approved. Did anybody want to add, discuss, or talk about things to add? Sheila?
I know, I'm trying to think how I want to word this. How do I want to word this? I guess I would like an ongoing update on climate with the TTA and their, making sure that they're meeting with the superintendent, making sure that, these meetings are happening, taking place. Do you get what I'm saying? I think I would like updates on that also.
You'd like to
Want a
add a
goal?
culture climate?
As a goal,
Category?
yeah.
So it's our goal, it's the school board's goal to have more updates from the TTA? Is that what you're suggesting, Sheila?
Yes,
Yeah, I would.
because,
I'm just trying to
No.
clarify what you were saying.
I'm not
that's,
sure just the TTA, I think all,
TSSU, I just want
This
to.
year and, you know, the new one.
The
that
union
will be
groups.
formed.
Right. I just I want to make sure we're touching base and making sure that,
Force them to be here.
I'm sorry?
I don't think you can force them to be here.
I'm
but
not,
you-
forcing them to be here, I'm just trying to open up the
Just
invitation.
trying to clarify your goal suggestion, that's all, in my mind.
so
that
to
you-
invite all union groups to
Yeah.
attend.
To come in and speak to us and,
Okay.
Okay. I would agree with that. Anybody else have anything else they would like to add? That's why I sort of grouped in the goals to keep them in different sort of buckets for different topics.
Under budget, when we see the proposed default budget, with explanations for any increases, decreases, et cetera. That was an issue last year.
And I think, you know, some of the things that we, you know, dove down and to get the budget earlier in the process, instead of waiting to the very end, and then it becomes, you know, let's make a deal. You know, that's not the way to do that kind
Can I
of.
speak to that? This is slash school board goals, superintendent's goals, so, we take your goals, Hampstead's kind of separate, it's kind of an SAU issue, but it really goes back to the two districts. I did have the opportunity to share some of the business goals with Dr. Farah, and it's, we're trying to smarten them up, because you wanted smart goals, I mean, they're goals, and we're close, we're on the right track, they're just not in draft form yet to share with you, but they will be, hopefully really soon, and then, want to do that with all our goals. So I really want to take a look at your goals and draft goals, but if there are goals that you want to see in my, if there are things that you want to see in my goals, I mean, I typically take your goals and obviously I'm going to have some curriculum and those sorts of things that may be outside of what your goals look like and maybe not. But hopefully to have those so they really kind of dovetail together. But I think the business goals, my thing was I wanted to make sure we were on the right track, because that's really been a focus area, if you will, with real smart goals, with deadlines and those sorts of things. So Kim gave us some great ideas, and Kathy's working on those, and with the business office. So those are pretty extensive, I think, and so we'll break them and chunk them into the same kind of categories that you have.
Okay.
All right?
Can I just, because we're all sitting here looking at this, but I don't think we ever articulated for anybody who might be watching
Okay.
what some of these goals were that we talked about.
Yeah, that's meeting with the
that-
workshop wasn't televised, you're right?
That I think, sounds like we're still working to clean up a little bit, but There's different categories. There's an academic category with a timeline of October 1st, 2019, to review state testing and building assessment scores, review AP and dual enrollment offerings along with any trends in enrollment and scores, obtain an outline of STEAM resources and materials available in the classrooms. There's a
Can we just stop there and address those?
Okay, you want to go through, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so review AP and dual enrollment offerings along with any trends. We know that the number of AP students is declining. So I would, instead of that goal, is to determine what is causing the decline in the enrollment in AP students, and also to take a look at dual enrollment and see where we can increase opportunities for students. That's within that 5-year plan.
The strategic plan.
And then on,
Does the board determine the cause of the decline?
no, it's, we don't determine the cause. It should be,
Hear a report, get information from.
obtain
regarding-
information
Yeah.
related to the decline in the number of students taking AP courses.
I think there should be, you should hook that around to, it's part of the strategic.
Sarah?
Yeah, just to kind of build off what's being said, I think it's important that we work with the deans that are the head of those departments to get that information, to work collaboratively with them, to understand what's going on in the building. If they see a specific trend, they're the ones that are talking with the guidance counselors, the students, the teachers. So I think it's important for our goal to be collaborative in nature, to identify what might be leading to those changes.
I'm a little confused by that comment because I can't even speak to a dean if I walk outside of this room. So I think we need to direct that through the superintendent to his personnel. I'm not allowed to interact with a dean.
I did not know that. I apologize. If that's agreeable with Dr. Metzler, I think it would be important to collaborate if possible.
Yeah, or
In some way.
you know, it's a board committee, curriculum and
Yeah,
assessment. I mean,
curriculum and
that,
assessment.
from my logic, that's
Yeah.
where that work would be done, and then
Mhm.
brought back to the board, but we can do it however, you know, whatever
Should
makes
go
the most
through
sense for you.
curriculum,
Yeah.
You know?
I just feel,
Connects to the curriculum committee
Mm-hmm.
and to that piece of the strategic plan that speaks towards curriculum.
Okay, so we'll be looking at that for
Doesn't it-
October 1.
Doesn't it also speak to guidance, though?
That's part of.
It could, I mean, guidance would be part of that. I think they would invite them to curriculum and assessment if they're looking for answers to questions,
Yeah.
but the way I see this is a board committee would be, and then the board committee, they do the work in the curriculum assessment, and then they would come and present to the board.
I understand that, but I'm trying to all encompass here
Yeah.
because the guidance counselors are the ones that have the,
But I think.
you know, when they're planning what they want to take and so forth, it's the guidance counselor you kind of go to,
Yeah, to your point, the guidance would be part of that meeting, and then they probably would be part of the presentation, you know, Mr. Chulgin, or if somebody else was assigned from his department to help out with that presentation.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory? When does the board usually get the presentation on our testing scores?
Here's the question to the question, which testing scores? Are we, you know,
The
Testing
Smarter
from-
Balance, the
from the
SAT.
state? Yeah, and so, when they get released, and so it would be nice if they.
No, I don't even know.
No, I know, and it would be nice if it was consistent, but it's consistently inconsistent, and then they get embargoed, and we have to get permission, and that, so, as timely as we can, I mean, we try to put together, you know, from our assessment department, kind of those scores, so as soon as we can get them, as soon as we're allowed to.
You don't have the scores yet?
The AP scores should be on.
We presented the 18-19 scores in January after they were released in December this past year.
Okay.
We just did spring testing in April, May. Those scores will be available in the fall.
Okay.
I think she wasn't at the last meeting, Christie, when we talked about this, and it's incorporated in the, help me out, when the principals come in,
Action plans.
the action plans. It's incorporated in the action plans, right?
The data then too.
Right, for the spring, so we asked that those be separated this year.
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Jen, but you weren't here, so.
So we good on the academic one?
I don't think that date's
On the
realistic.
STEAM, I think that instead of just obtaining an outline, that there should be, and I'm not sure how to word this exactly, but ensuring that the STEAM resources and materials that we have are being utilized and that teachers are being afforded the opportunity for professional development in those areas, since that's another focus of the strategic plan.
Yeah, so demonstrated evidence, so maybe an executive summary form to show kind of how those opportunities are being, or in presentation form, do you want?
List of materials.
Like, we've got to think about how we're going to make sure that these goals are actually realized, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So with an explanation of the utilization. So here, looking down, yeah. We have, under financial with a timeline of December 1, 2019, evaluate the budget and look how to best allocate funds to address any concerns, gaps identified in the above academic goals, and audit for TRSD to be clean into the school board no later than March 2020, same with SAU. I'm not sure we can put SAU in there, to be honest with you.
Well,
Well-
I mean, Kim's seen these, you haven't seen them yet. We have a pretty extensive, I think it goes, there's a lot of deadlines,
There are a lot of
business goals.
business goals,
Okay.
right, with dates. So, it's not to say that these, and that's one of the goals is for the audits to have removal of deficiencies and weaknesses.
Is this okay for putting in
Yeah,
with the school
yeah,
board?
I think that's fine. Do we mean the current budget or the proposed budget or both? In the first one? Because I'm a little unclear. I wasn't, I'm sorry, I wasn't at this meeting, so.
Wasn't either.
I would like to actually see the first round of the budget,
Actually, you can see it better over
say
there.
October 1st.
I know, but this is saying evaluate the budget. So is this the current budget to best allocate funds or
I think the budget of
Yeah,
this budget that we're in.
the current budget?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you
Looking
should
at
add
a
current, just so
reevaluation.
you know.
Should be both, really,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I
It
think
can be
the
both.
other one is addressed in
In the
budget.
budget.
This is more on the line of our responsibility as the board members.
So wait, I'm sorry, since I wasn't at this meeting, I'm just looking for some clarity. So you're looking to essentially dig into department budgets that were presented to the budget committee last spring, that have already been set, and then possibly moving money around? I just want to understand what this means.
Not what I'm looking at.
Okay, when it says to best allocate funds to address any concerns, I'm just looking for clarity on what your
I mean, one thing,
intention
at least
is.
I would review it is, something that Mr. Dowd brought tonight,
Yeah.
for here, is if we have to move funds, I mean, December would be probably a good time to look at that. We'd,
Before
got a
December,
couple of
it's
months of already school started, the fiscal part running.
It's a high look at the budget to see where we have potential shortfalls or overages so that we can anticipate where they may have to be shifts, but it's not looking at somebody's building and saying you need to buy red pencils instead of blue.
Okay, that wasn't what I was insinuating, but I just wanted to get a better idea of what that statement meant, so, thank you.
For community, there's a timeline of October 15th, 2019, to develop grassroots efforts to support a new bond if the board decides to move forward with a bond by engaging volunteers throughout the community to develop a coordinated outreach to all taxpayers. Within that workshop, we did talk about what might be the best route to go because we are pretty behind.
I was gonna say, are we, I think we're even,
No, I think,
I don't even think
a lot of
we're
that
close.
discussion at
That
this
was,
workshop.
Back in May.
that community one, that was something that I had sent to Sean well before that workshop, the end of May, when we started talking about school board goals, and he said,
Right.
please send me anything any of you may
Right.
have. So,
And
Perhaps we could have that change to facilities and have a comprehensive 5-year facilities plan drawn up in lieu of going for a major bond. Or have two of those, have a major bond
comparison.
What are you looking to
Proposal.
change to facilities, the
I'm just,
heading or the
yeah, the
actual
heading, because
goal?
I mean, this, we know we're not, we missed the
Yep.
timeline for the bond this year, so I'm thinking that we have facilities, and underneath that, because Brian has been doing a lot of work on
Yep.
thinking this through, does it make sense to go for a major bond? Or does it make sense to have, say, a 5-year major capital improvement plan centered around facilities that the board approves that could then, I think, and we'd have to go to legal, be included as part of the default budget with the same
Right. I
sort of
think that's-
idea as the technology plan is. There's two different routes that you could take in terms of trying to make improvements to the facilities.
And what we would utilize is the current, we're paying, the 1.6 million. We actually paid our last payment for that, so that's a nice kudos to everybody.
We did, and I expected that it was gonna be very exciting time.
Do we have like a big burning party or something?
Hey, how's that?
Where's the
Yep,
date?
we're done.
But, Brian, you mentioned something that night that exists that this board has not seen that I think maybe would be a good goal for this
Right.
board. There's some master plan or document or,
There's like a 2,000-line
Yeah,
spreadsheet that
yeah,
indicates
Tom
where
Gary
we are
has,
on
yeah.
lifetime.
Yes, he does.
so maybe that needs to be a goal
Senior
that this
facilities.
board,
Maintenance, repair, and projects.
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah,
What is it called again?
It's basically the maintenance, repair, and projects, potential
Yeah.
projects.
And some of the discussions that I know Brian and I have had one-on-one is, if you're gonna go out to do a bond, it's gonna, whatever dollar amount, you gotta have all your projects lined on up, you gotta talk about them,
If nothing.
and you're not gonna have all that information readily available. And we just got done paying this. What the proposal that Brian and I had floated around is the 1.6 million is what we've been paying for the existing bond, which also includes the interest and all that, is that we would still propose that we would bring in this 1.6 million as part of an operating budget expense. And, hopefully the voters would support this, but what we would do is looking at all these projects that we would need to do and then pick them on off over a 5-year plan, like, we're gonna do, this particular aspect, and then this one, and then this one, and then we know that we would have that kind of funds in our budget to address these different projects that we would have. One is we wouldn't have to go out to the bond bank, we would reduce the interest cost on that, and, we can organize this in a lot of different ways to have the school board approve a project. We could actually tell the voters that if you support this and it's in our operating budget, we will talk about all projects here, so everybody gets to see where this $1.6 million of funds would be allocated throughout the district. And we could say that we were gonna have, a public hearing on these projects and so forth, to be overly transparent so that the voters can feel confident that, yeah, we're gonna go down this road and we're gonna, move this forward. It's a different way of looking at it, and I think it's got a lot of pluses and minuses, as anything does, but the pluses, I think, would far outweigh the minuses. And we know that we have to put some infusion of capital into this district in regards to fixing things. And instead of coming on out and asking for a multi-year, $20, $30, million bond, we could do this in sort of $1.6 million increments and pick it off. And different philosophy, and I guess we'll have more discussions of that as time goes on. And we're on the next one.
Budget, timeline is the first board meeting in October to receive first draft of administration's proposed recommended operation budget for fiscal year 2021. Receive first draft of administration's proposed default budget for fiscal year 2021 with explanations for any increases and decreases. Meet with budget committee so that both committees understand where surplus came from and what we can expect to see in the 2020-2021 budget.
you're gonna do that by October.
And now with that, as we all know, the discussions of budgets start, and then there's gonna be a lot of discussion over multiple meetings, as we move forward. So, as it's stated, it's the first draft. We should have the first draft around in October versus in December, so that we can talk about it and then actually table things to get information back. Waiting to the very end where we're trying to get things that we, you can't turn around and get updates that quickly, you find out you run out of time. And, you look back at it and what does that really reflect? It's not properly planning, and we want to properly plan for it. So I would like to actually see this portion of it as well.
Again, I would like to see the budget along with an executive summary for any increases or decreases that are, I don't know,
Greater than.
greater than, I don't know, $500,000?
Not so bad.
10% of the line, 5% of the line,
Some of the
something like
line might
that?
be better than a number, right?
Yeah. What do you think, Brian? Sheila?
I think 5.
I'm trying to think of a way so that we're not, it's like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, this is gonna be something that is new and we're developing it, and I like to look at that as our work product, that we could dynamically do it. It's, I think the understanding is identify things that are the big factors in there and just leave it at that. I mean, I could see, you don't wanna say, 5% or 10%. I mean, you can say that, but, I'd like to maybe give Dr. Metzel some flexibility into showing if he wants to go down deeper and, show something that's in there. It seems like it's a good way of doing it.
I don't disagree. I would like something, a
looking
written
at trying to make it-
justification along with the budget.
Okay, I mean,
That's all.
Yeah.
Obviously for things that are changing at some
Yeah.
level,
Want
which.
to call them major drivers?
Yeah, major, yeah,
Yeah,
major
right.
items.
It's sort of like
Up
when
and
we do
down.
the presentation of the budget, it's like, you're looking, what are the major things that are causing it
Yeah, I
to
would
go
stay
up
away
and
from
down?
percentages.
That kind of a thing.
Okay.
I mean, we know what one driver is gonna be, the new TTA contract comes into effect, so that's gonna potentially drive that salary line up. Insurance typically goes up, that's gonna be another one. But instead of just having the numbers and then having to ask questions, it would be nice to see the explanation right in the spreadsheet as to what's driving that particular line.
I think last year we ran into, what one person considers a significant up or down. So we'll just
Well,
have
that's
to
true,
work,
but
we'll
at
have to
least-
work through
At
that.
least if you say that you want it.
Yep.
In the past, I don't think we've gotten, all we have is the numbers, and I think it's important to at least understand where those numbers are coming from.
Okay.
Brian's still going to be the representative to the budget committee, right?
Yeah. I agree.
That's why you're the big
So,
guy. That's
what,
why you get all
if that
this.
goes to the budget committee, it would be the budget committee could benefit from that as well, right?
Yeah,
So,
oh, yeah, no, I'm
so-
hoping it would help move the process along.
Yeah.
So
I
it'd
think
just
the
be the
work
same
product that
document
Mr.
that
Dow would
goes-
generate should be, here's to the school board and here's to the budget committee, simultaneously.
Well, except that really, and I think by statute, the school board should be proposing a budget number to the budget committee. So it's not that they can't see it at the same time, but we need to see it.
I think anything whatever we did last year, I think was obviously, well-received by the public, the budget, we passed a budget. And whatever we can do to expand on that, especially if we're going to be looking to keep that
Number.
1.6 million in that budget so that we can do some of these facility repairs that are much needed, will go a long way to help pass a budget again next year.
Okay. We had what, a couple more on here about the general?
Oh, I missed that. Monitor the no bullying initiative, have all meetings live streamed and/or Vimeo up within 48 hours of the meetings. Require all information in the agenda packets 48 hours before the meeting, or it will not be discussed. Stop the handing out of multi-page financial documents at our meeting and expecting to discuss the topic.
I bet you I could have done some better wordsmithing on that.
I know, I'm stumbling on it because this is not my writing.
Well, I think,
Really a goal.
I was gonna say
It's
that.
just
I think looking at
statements.
the business
Like
goals,
goals.
that may help with the wording,
Yeah.
right?
No, I think where the spirit of these last two comments come from, and I know that, we want to get the updated information. It's hard to get a new spreadsheet with a lot of data in it, and then we're here live trying to parse things and thinking about it where people can take it, offline, look at it, highlight, get their questions sort of outlined, and then as we start to discuss it. So what I'm trying to get at is that we should probably have these documents not live and coming hot off the printer, and I understand that will happen sometimes, but maybe we could try to have as a goal to reduce the hot off the printer phrase kind of thing, and have stuff a couple of days ahead of time. That's where I think.
I appreciate the 48-hour effort. I mean, just, this week is a great example of that. We had the withdrawal meeting Tuesday night, we had the SAU meeting Wednesday night, we have this meeting Thursday night, and
Drinks on Friday.
for a lot of us, this, we have full-time jobs on top of this, so it's hard to look at all of this ahead of time if we don't have,
Yeah, our goal really was trying to have the packet out, right?
Right, the week before.
The Friday
And that-
before the
And we've
meeting.
done, the majority of that has been done that way.
No,
It's just-
I do know that, and at least from my view is where I've experienced it, and it's sort of the financial aspects of
Yes.
things that we get on here, and I know a lot of it is Jeff's trying to get a lot of stuff he's got on his plate. We're trying to get the updated information, but it's also on the flip side of it. It's hard to get stuff where you're seeing it for the first time, very detailed, financials, and you're trying to dive into that, run a meeting. It's like, if we're going to discuss that, it's pretty much hard for me to dive into it because, I got to run the meeting here. So that's the kind of thing is to look at it from our perspective as a board, to trying to digest this information. And how can we do it in a better manner where we could become more prepared coming to a meeting? So it's a goal.
Got it. And obviously, the other goal in terms of the Vimeo recording, that sort of thing, we talked about that last night. It's about trying to expand the force of
Yeah,
people
correct.
that can.
It's just any organization, anything, single point of failure, not a good policy, period. So we can do something in that regard that would be great for us and the community.
You're gonna polish those up, those bullets.
I'm taking some notes here, yeah.
Thank you.
An update from the superintendent is the ability to train others on reporting, whatever that stuff is called over there. Get financial spreadsheets in advance of the meetings.
Okay. All right. You all set with school board goals?
Okay.
superintendent's goals? Anybody else?
I'll type that up and give it to you so you can do it from scratch.
Nope. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. The administrator's report.
Excellent, well, thank you. Materials in the board packets. First, I want to thank, Susan Rassico for giving me the baseline bullying data. You have that by school. It gives you the population of the school, the actual reported number, investigated as, and then what was substantiated. So you have that. So, and I know that's one of your goals is to monitor. So we certainly can have Mrs. Rassico in at another date to talk more about that if that's something.
Can I ask a question, just so that if she's gonna come back and talk more about this? I feel like I've asked this before when it's come before us, so forgive me if I'm just not able to digest this. Reported bullying and investigated bullying, those two numbers are identical. And is that because what is reported as reported bullying?
So if it's reported as bullying, it's investigated as bullying.
So
I
if
can
a
answer that.
parent.
I did talk to Susan Rassico about that when we were talking about putting this together. And so that was some of the questions that I had as to, because someone can use the word bullying.
Correct.
But there's got to be a threshold where it's determined, some kind of threshold where it's moved forward as a bullying one. Some things they can tell right out of the gate, this is just pure conflict.
So this is what I have been driving at since I very first got on this board. What is reported as reported bullying? Because a parent can come and say, I feel my child is being bullied because X, Y, and Z. But that is a parent reporting a concern of bullying, but that report is not being reported because it's not truly reported bullying.
Well,
I know I sound like
that would be-
I'm
no,
like
that would
Susie
be
sells
peer-
seashells by the seashore
But
here,
see,
but
if you, for
That's
every
peer-
complaint,
that's a
what
peer
you're,
conflict.
right, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, so what you're asking for is every complaint made in the schools.
so I'm asking to
That's
just
different.
understand what that number truly reflects.
But you can't call it bullying because it's not actually,
So the number of when it says
complaints?
reported bullying here, that is the number
That have been reported and
That-
confirmed to.
the building administrators have identified as.
Yeah, it qualifies,
Bullying.
it qualifies as bullying.
Qualified as bullying
So
investigated.
the first and second number, I don't even understand why we have them listed separately, because every incident of reported bullying is supposed to be investigated as bullying.
Well, I think they're confirming that it was investigated. So it wasn't like, oh, yeah, you reported bullying and then they didn't investigate it. I think they're telling you that it was reported, and I know you would expect that. but
Yes,
they're-
I would.
But they're also telling you that they did that,
Okay.
right? You say that's how it's reported, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
You're probably gonna, she's just gonna probably can't stand me for this, but the reason why I wanted a baseline was because we started this program last year, 18,
Well, yeah. In the-
right?
yeah.
We started it in the fall. So what I was looking for, I guess, and I wasn't specific, so it's all my fault, I'll be the first to admit it. I was looking for 17, 18, so
Okay.
that we could see, at the trend as the.
Comparing.
Comparing to see how this no bullying program is doing. So, like, you know what I'm saying? So this would be the 18-19. We get another one next year for 19-20, but we could compare it to 17-18
Before we had the program.
before we had the program.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. So when we have her in, which we want to have her in because it's one of your goals anyway, that
I apologize because in my head, we asked for it in 18-19, so when I was looking for the baseline, I was thinking the year before, but I didn't make that specific. So I will apologize for the extra work already. But I'm glad we've got this too.
she was on the 22nd anyway, so I think she was planning on being there.
But I'm
so.
glad we've got this too, because it
Yeah.
adds to the trend.
Yeah, I don't want to make predictions, but based on the numbers I'm looking here at, the 17-18 numbers, the program may have looked like it's had an impact.
That's what I'm trying to
I think.
see.
But I don't know that.
Right, but that's what
100%.
I'm trying to see is, how are we doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think this is important because this is your baseline. So when we go into this new school year, Sheila, we want those numbers to get smaller, I do,
Right?
right? And I hear what you're saying on
I
the
wanna
left
see where
side
we
of this
started.
chart, yeah. But you really need to compare this is one orange, we wanna compare to the next orange.
And I want to
that we
compare to the apple before.
Without the
Without the-
orange. Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
Okay. Good.
Ask for an executive summary where we are with our middle school principal search. Okay, there's quite a lengthy executive summary there. The Reader's Digest version, where we have 3 finalists. I have a senior member of the leadership team at the middle school that will be interviewing the 3 finalists with me on Monday to make some sort of recommendation about who our next middle school principal will be. And so be able to, that's where we are in the process. I'm going to be relying a great deal on that particular individual, tremendous amount of experience, and has worked there for many years. So hopefully we'll have somebody to recommend after that. Another is, and again, I thank you again for moving the meeting from the August 8th date, the summer leadership retreat. This is our 3rd year. I'd like to thank Christy Michaud, and certainly before her Deb Armfield, in terms of pulling this together. Part of it is grant funded, part of it is funded. It's an opportunity for our Timberlane administrative staff to bond and and address some key issues. You'll notice the agenda's listed there. I'll go through it quickly. Student discipline, practicum, manifestation determinations, and removing dangerous students. So that's really around the special ed world. Risk assessments, duty to perform for student misbehaviors, discrimination, harassment in Title IX, and then New Hampshire, the new Code of Ethics and Conduct. Typically, we get some help with our attorneys on this. They put together a program. It was really what started our program several years ago because it was exclusively something they came up with that was available to all districts, and we kind of monopolized and took all the seats because we saw great value in it. So they do a great job, and certainly through our HR department, making sure that our administrators are up to speed on all those and other areas as well. I think the important piece here is really, laws change, practices change, those sorts of things, and making sure that we're getting good legal advice as how we go about this. Bullying fell into this at one point as well, so that's the leadership retreat.
How many administrators do we send?
What?
How many administrators do we send?
All.
Well, the number works out to 31 when you divide it by the cost, divided by the total registration.
Yeah, so, there you go.
Without taxes. The impact of.
So if the number doesn't match exactly with the number of administrators, there could be someone that
around
has
30
some sort of family, obligation or something where they couldn't attend, but we encourage everybody to attend.
Thank you.
Sheila?
So do you actually, you're staying at Mills Falls?
Yeah, they stay.
You stay there,
They
too?
stay there and
The place is great, I've been there, I've stayed there. One meal? They're overnight and they're getting one meal? How are you eating?
I think Christie?
Just kind of curious, one meal's not a lot.
It's one meal that is outside of the registration costs. So the registration costs do include breakfast and lunch. It's just, that's the only meal that we're paying for separately.
So they're not gonna starve.
Well, it really doesn't say that though here, does it? It says one meal.
Come on, Christie.
Okay, moving on to, there we go. The roofing project update. So I know we had, I sent something out to you earlier in the week. I have to, credit Gary Paradise and certainly Principal Marino, at Sandown Central. We had, as you got at your last packet, we had a mishap, in terms of the roof, and there was some roof repair. What had happened, while that was on with the vendor, and there is some talk about, who's paying in terms of whose fault this is, but had a major impact in terms of the air quality, and we just did not feel it was suitable for students or staff members, and several of you weighed in on that. We moved them out immediately. I also, it's Mrs. Brown who runs the recreation program.
It is.
Who was great. We were able to work with her because they need access to outside the building, so they're fine, so it didn't impact the recreation department. So we also have an opportunity, they have another site that they can go to in the event of inclement weather, because we use the building. But we moved the staff out, we moved part of the program to Pollard, so I'd like to thank, Mrs. Rasco and certainly Amy Daly and our special ed people to be able to get that program. But what happened while they're fixing the roof, some soot and some, I don't know why, but, it obviously impacted the air quality. Gary brought it to our attention with Principal Marino right away, noticing some of this black soot, and said this is not where people should be. So we got them out of there. ServPro and the people that do the air quality testing, everybody's involved in terms of making sure that this place is cleaner than it was before we started this project, and certainly suitable. So it's been addressed, and
The mitigation of this is to be completed by when, though, approximately? I mean, school's gonna be starting in roughly a month
school
from now.
school will be ready to open. I think the important part here was we're holding the vendor responsible for creating this
Yes.
issue inside the building,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
that was really who's paying to clean. We
Well-
believe it's them.
Yes.
I would, not knowing all the facts about it, but I agree, but that's something.
In addition to, but
In
having-
addition to, I mean, we need to have the school open
Yeah, I
on
think they
time.
said
That's
next
the main
week. They
focus,
said
and then
they
after
could do
that,
next
who
week.
pays for it is definitely
but-
another discussion.
all part of it. But I think that I've been assured that within, it certainly will be ready to open for school, but within the week. But we just couldn't keep the programs in there. We needed to move the program to Pollard, so.
Jill?
Is it the same vendor that's doing Pollard?
I'm not sure. Do you know? It's the same vendor? Yeah.
Okay.
I think this was unforeseen. I'm not a roofer, so I don't know what caused this, and
Well, regardless, there's a fire and something happened, obviously, the blowtorch either lit up something up there, but there was definitely smoke. So I am just glad everybody's out of the building. I was concerned with the employees staying in the building. I didn't want them in there either, to be honest with you, because I'm worried about everybody. If the air's not good, the air's not
Yeah,
good.
Jen Marino wouldn't allow me to do
Yeah.
that anyway, so
Well,
she would take care of that.
Everybody
but
needs to
thanks.
go. Let's
So
get it
it's just-
right before we have anybody else in there. I don't want anybody getting sick.
You're right, absolutely. So, those are the two, the roofing project update and the roof replacement at Sandout Central. Those two executive summaries, and then you also asked for a list of administrators, which you have on the back of one of these, so you have that list. We're also in receipt of a $1,000 donation from Southern New Hampshire University for the use of the upcoming college fair. Fair is scheduled for the morning of September 16th, which I believe is a Monday. We have over 100 schools that are currently participating, so I need the board to take action to accept that donation so that we can fund that event.
I'll make the motion to accept the $1,000 donation from SNHU.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Not call for a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstain.
Thank you. That's the administrator's report.
All right. Move on to personnel report.
Personnel report. Well, I guess this is, it's never easy. Certainly it's with, certainly very happy, happy for Christy, certainly sad for us. She's been an outstanding employee here, nothing but praise for her work. Certainly not just a colleague, but a friend of all of ours. We're very happy that she's been able to secure an assistant superintendent's job in another district. She has tendered her resignation as of August 9th. Again, we love Christy. She's done nothing but great work here, and we wish her the best. And we're asking you to accept her letter of resignation as of August 9th.
Move to accept her resignation with regrets and best wishes.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Not call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. We also have a second resignation. This is also a very difficult, one of our best. Maureen Marino, special education teacher, ASD, has also, personal reasons, has resigned from her position. We'll need to accept that resignation as well.
Seek a motion to accept the resignation for Maureen Marino.
I'll make a motion. Someone did? Did you already make a motion?
No, I was seeking the motion.
Oh, I thought you were making
I
it.
thought you were making it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept resignation of Maureen Marino with regret and wish her the best. Thank her for her services.
Okay, I'm assuming you're going to second that, Sarah?
Yep.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Call for a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous.
Our hiring season, we have 3 nominations this evening for professional staff. We've been fortunate, especially in the area of science, in speaking to our principals and people that have been interviewing folks to bring them on board. We have 2 science teachers here, Stephanie Lehman, that's a high school science teacher, as well as Jocelyn Fraga Muller. And we also have Erica Mahone, who's a middle school special ed reading teacher. So we like to nominate those 3 staff members to fill vacancies at both our middle school and high school.
Okay, I'll make a motion to hire Stephanie Lehman, Erica Mahone, and Jocelyn Mueller.
Second.
Oh, Sue seconds.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Sue?
I wanted to point out that Nancy, I believe, has changed the screening page that we've gotten, so you can see a screening committee, a level 1 interview committee, and a level 2 interview group. So you can see it goes screening, level 1, level 2.
Is that what?
Number of applicants.
Yeah, no,
On-
I've noticed that as well.
Thank you. Number of applicants is what was on Apple Track, or the process, and then the qualified applicants that either finished or were qualified was 5. We tried to add that. I'm I had kind of mentioned that to Nancy when I was here for the middle school principal search, that we might want to do that. It might make it easier for us to understand who was what, instead of one long list that you don't know who did
I do
what.
appreciate that, like seeing how many applicants we've had.
Yep, yep. And I also suggested adding, internal or external when it's appropriate too.
I do like the new format. Anybody else? Okay, we had a motion to appoint these 3 individuals.
Second. Did somebody already second?
Already did that.
We're ready to vote. Okay. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay.
That's the personnel report.
Okay. Committee reports to the school board. You just went to yours earlier.
Already done.
We haven't done any policy updates.
Policy
That's
hasn't
pretty much-
met, Kim covered withdrawal.
Sue, you got anything?
Just letting you know that the Wellness Expo is still planned for the 25th of September. That's all coming together. Vendors are coming together there. Remember, we're using the YMCA. We've expanded the hours. That had been something that had been bounced around by the school board over the last couple of years, to not have it be such a small amount of time, but to make it more open, much more inviting, to have the parking's easier at the Y for us senior citizens, et cetera. Easier getting in, not have to worry about, scooting in around kids trying to leave school. So it's the 25th of September. I believe it's noon. I don't want to give the wrong times. I believe it's noon to 5 o'clock, 5:30, and the blood bank is going to be there all day long.
Not really a committee report, but I had another meeting with Tom Gary, so we're getting pretty close to coming up with a solution to bring back to the board for the PAC. So
Great.
I think everyone's going to be pretty happy with it.
Good, good.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Sarah, you got anything?
Nope, I don't.
Okay. All right, correspondence, winter payroll, we did that, it's already gone down, coming back, yeah, I think it,
Did you see this?
anybody not seen it, we're headed an opportunity to address it? Is there any other business to come before the school board?
Do you want to go into a non-public?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, I wanna go into non-public under 91A, colon 3, Roman numeral 2, subsection C. So that's gonna be at the end here, so, we don't have any more, anybody else wanted to bring a topic to the school board, that's where we're gonna go.
Can we get an update on the gym floor in the middle school? Is that done, do we know?
They're, I just got a picture of that today. I think they're taking off years of tarnish, and so they're in the process of refinishing that as we speak.
So it's being done now?
Correct.
Okay,
I
great.
think the
No,
picture, I think I got, I almost tweeted it out today, but I'd rather tweet out a finished product or something with proof. that they're,
No, I just
yeah.
wanted to know if it's in
So you don't
process.
need to follow
and-
up, you're all set?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to know if it's in process and how
yeah.
it's going, and are we gonna have it ready, and,
What we should have on August 22nd is you should have summer project update. Like, so all the stuff that got done in the summer, Tom will be in.
that would be great. Can we put that on the agenda?
Got that?
He does have the pictures.
And this, all right, so going back to this is gonna end our normal, part of our meeting, and then we're gonna do non-public, it's under 91A, colon 3, paragraph 2, subsection C. Somebody need a roll call vote?
Do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, roll call vote?
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's?
Yes.
Mrs. Markham?
No.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And Mrs. Silva?
Yes.
You are in at 8:53.